Hello, everybody. Can you hear me? Hello, everybody. Yup, seems like you can hear me. We're ready to go. So exciting. Got a new microphone. Had some coffee. Maybe a little too much. Hello from Tampa. Loud and clear. Are you guys excited or what? Say I'm excited. This is so amazing. By the end of this webinar, you're gonna be like, I'm so smart. Okay, so we're doing appraisal, valuation, and market analysis. What are the four essential elements of value? Everybody write the four essential elements of value. Go. 3, 2, 1, go. Four essential elements of value. Who's got it? Four essential elements of value. Stud. Nice job, Cookie Alfaro. Stud. Some of you guys can remember dust, stud, Tizida, whatever works for you. Stud stands for what? Scarcity, transferability, utility, and demand. Somebody said, is he talking? Oh, am I talking to myself? I don't think I'm talking to myself. Okay, scarcity, transferability, utility, and demand. Dust, demand, utility, scarcity, transferability, Tizida, if you guys want that, rock out. That is the fundamental of this section of valuation and market analysis. Okay, Heather writes, sorry, I'm late. Well, bummer for you. I spent the first 2 minutes giving the answer to the exam. First minute, I was like, 1A, 2B, 3C. The rest is all just junk. Just right now, I didn't do that. Be pretty cool if I did though, right? Okay, scarcity, transferability, utility, and demand. Let's look at the question on the board. An appraiser examines a building that is 25 years old. Because of superior upkeep, it has a condition of an 11-year-old building. The appraiser may use the 11-year-old age as the A, actual age, B, physical age, C, effective age, or D, numerical age. And the answer is C, effective age. It's how useful it is. Let's go to the next question. Oh,
Juter,
oh, I'm so sorry. How rude of me. Everybody, turn your cell phone off. Man, a little respect for the classroom. Okay. Let's go back to the question here. Ugh, reading. Gross. Okay, which of the following is described as the process of expressing anticipated future benefits of ownership in dollars and discounting them to present worth at a rate which is attracting purchase capital to a similar investment? Blah, 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 boring. A, deduction, B, cost, C, comparable, D, capitalization. Any other you guys think that when you read these questions, like blah, 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 boring? Okay, and the answer here is capitalization. Okay, we talk about cap rate, whatnot. We talk about income into value, income into value. If your screen is blurry, make sure you change the settings to 720 HD. 720 HD if your screen is blurry. Okay. So this question, it looks very confusing actually, but what really you're just talking about is capitalization rate. And what they're talking about is when a business makes money or a building's making money, you take that income and you put it on value of property. Does that make sense? So for example, if you have two buildings that look exactly the same, are on the same block, everything looks the same, but one's bringing $1 million a year and the other one's bringing $10 a year, obviously you pay more for the one that's bringing $1 million a year. You know that. What you don't know is exactly how much. And that's when the capitalization rate comes in. Okay? Because you're trying to predict the value of that building based upon the income you think it'll bring in. Make sense? Because income has value, right guys? Okay, an appraiser who uses improper methods to appraise a property for a government-backed loan may be guilty of A, a misdemeanor, B, a warning, C, a felony, or D, violating real estate licensing law. Somebody said, do we have class today? Is that not what I'm doing now? I feel like I'm doing that now. And the answer is C, a felony. This is a federal government-backed loan. Moving right along. The appraisal approach most likely to be used in valuing a public library building would be A, the cost approach, B, the residual comparison approach, C, the income approach, or D, the market data approach. Somebody asked me if we're doing class right now, it's like when you take your spouse out to the most beautiful dinner you could set up and put roses and hearts and everything, and then your spouse says, we should do something romantic once in a while. You're like, I thought that's what I'm doing now, and now I am devastated and I have feelings. Hey, moving right along. Yeah, and then they're like, oh, is this the romantic thing? Yup. Okay, the cost approach for a public library. So we got 3 approaches to find value. Nice job, Ariel Marie, on passing your exam. Everybody, congratulations. Okay, so you got 3 approaches to finding value. Okay, what are they? What are the 3 appraisal approaches you guys learn when studying for your real estate exam? What do you guys think? So you got the cost approach, the market data comparison approach, and you have the capitalization income approach. Somebody said they just heard Slack go off. Man, WhatsApp, Slack, Messenger, messaging, text, I can't keep up. So up on the board, you have the cost approach, right? What's the cost approach? What's the cost approach? So these are the 3 methods you guys must know. So what's the cost approach? You got to remember it as how much would it cost to replace something brand new? How much would it cost to replace it brand new? Everybody got that? That's the cost approach. And these are for what's called, what kind of properties? What kind of properties are these? What kind of properties would you use this for? Anybody? These would be special purpose properties. Great job, Bharathi Patalapati. I hope I pronounced your name correctly. You got the answer right. Great job. You're first on the board. So special purpose properties. Special purpose properties are ones that are unique to every community. For example, schools, libraries, police stations, things of that nature. All right, those are special purpose properties. How much would it cost to replace it brand new? You look how much it would cost to replace it brand new, and there's your value. What's the problem with that? Every approach has a benefit and a flaw. What's the problem with that approach of doing the cost replacement approach? What's the problem of looking at something and saying, how much would it cost to replace this brand new, and that's the value? What's the problem with that? What do you guys think? What do you guys think? The problem with that is it's not new. If it is, that's not normal. Usually those buildings are pretty old. When we're think about the buildings we just mentioned, libraries, schools, police station, firehouses. Traditionally in most communities, those are some of the oldest buildings in the community. Right, guys? Give me a right, Joe, if you hear me. So the problem with those are not new, so you got to factor in for depreciation. You got to factor in for depreciation, and that could be very tricky. Everybody got it? So that's the flaw of that approach, is those buildings aren't new, and so you got to factor in for the depreciation it suffered over time. And that could be a very tricky thing to do. When there are properties that are very similar, like when you have a house on a street with other houses that should look just like it, what approach would you use? What do you guys think? So if you are looking at a home, of which there are 10 homes that look exactly the same, what approach would you use? What do you guys think? Market data comparison approach. Market data comparison approach. Those are comps, okay? So comps basically say, well, how much is your house worth? And you say, my house is worth 500 grand. Why is it worth 500 grand? Well, I went to an open house at the person's next door. And although their house is the same square footage and everything, their decorating is hideous and I hate them. Therefore, their home is only worth 400 grand and mine is clearly worth 100 grand more. I'm comparing mine to theirs and theirs stinks. And then you go to them and say, oh, hi, how are you? Love your open house. See you tomorrow. Theirs stinks. I hate it. Who's guilty of that? Don't lie. Don't lie. You know, you guys judge your neighbor's property and be like, who is their decorator? Ugh, woof. Okay, so that is comps. That's the market data approach. And as a professional real estate agent, you will look at the property and you'll go back usually about 6 months and you'll say what has been listed, what has been sold, all the activity you could find in the past 6 months. What is the problem with this approach? What do you guys think? So this is the most common, all right, approach for real estate agents, but what is the problem with it? What is the problem with it? What is the problem with this approach? Well, first we said go back 6 months. What has some drastic change happened in the last 6 months? Like, I don't know, a global pandemic? Who remember when that first came on the scene? In 2020, April? Yeah, good luck on doing comps during that moment. Okay? Rapid economic change. What if there's been no activity at all in the last 6 months? So that kind of approach assumes that there's been activity in the most recent 6 months. There's been no drastic change that occurred, no big event that happened in the last 6 months. Everybody got it? And of course, no two properties are alike. No two properties are alike. Everybody got that? And it's always going to be speculative, a judgment call of differentiating the value of those two properties. In the last approach, the one we see in the question we did a little bit ago, not this one, is what? The capitalization income approach. And what does that approach do? We talked about that before, so hopefully everybody gets it correct. What's the capitalization income approach? What do you guys think? The capitalization income approach converts income into value. Converts income into value. Converts income into value. I hope you guys don't mind, but I'd like to take a minute just to thank everybody. As you guys know, who follow my personal Instagram, Joe Juter, I had a rough week last week. My dog passed away, and it was a tough month ever since Christmas, and the support from everybody was just people I'd never met before, people I've only seen in the webinars, was amazing. And that's why I love doing this so much. Hopefully you could tell my voice. I have my down days, obviously, but this group is so amazing. We're all here to learn together, and everybody's so supportive of each other. When you guys look at this chat, we never see people arguing about politics or social status or any of those superficial nonsense we see all the time. Everybody's just so amazingly supportive, and I just wanted to take a second to say thank you. It was hard, it was difficult, and it was one of those things where you know it's coming, but when the moment happens, especially for me, I looked at the logistics of it. When the moment happened, it hit me super hard. It's like a presence was gone, and the outpouring of support I got from everybody who follows, everybody who attends the webinars was beyond what I ever could have hoped for. So I want to say how much I appreciate it. And I love doing this, and I'll continue to do this to the best of my ability. And we'll all grow and have a great career. Anyways, I don't want to get all sad, so I'm going to move on and continue, but I did want to say thank you to everybody. Love for everybody. Thank you. Okay, let's move on. But isn't our chat nice? You never hear people arguing about the stuff that we're bombarded with all over the news and every day in our personal life. Everybody's just here to kind of get our career off the ground in this chat. It's really nice. Okay, here we go. What is the best way to appraise the land value of a property? A, capitalization, B, income, C, allocation, or D, residual. What do you guys think? And the answer is C, allocation. That's a little tougher, that one. Somebody said, yes, we all get along with trying to pass. Yeah, a common goal usually does bring people together. Okay. There's 3 types of depreciation you guys have to learn for your exam. But first, I'd like you to define for me, what is depreciation? What is depreciation? Define for me in the chat, what is depreciation? What do you guys think? What is depreciation? Loss of value from any cause. Depreciation is a loss of value from any cause. Good. There's 3 types of depreciation you need to know when studying for a real estate exam. What are they? What are the 3 types of depreciation you guys need to know when studying for your real estate exam? So you have economic obsolescence, functional obsolescence, and physical deterioration. Economic obsolescence, functional obsolescence, and physical deterioration. I would like you guys in the chat right now to give me an example of economic obsolescence. Give me an example of economic obsolescence. Please write it in the chat. How's my audio? This is a new mic. I'm still kind of not sure about it. Crime in the neighborhood. Airport nearby. Yeah, when COVID hit. So people ask about the last allocation. I'll be honest, I'm struggling for a good definition of that. So what I will do is I will look that up and post a nice definition of it on my Instagram page where everybody can see it. Let me get back to you on that one. Because I don't want to just make up something and just not give correct information. So let me get back on that one. Okay, so economic obsolescence when your property loses value to issues outside of the property lines. Extraneous to the property lines, you sometimes hear. Okay? What is... Okay, so we got economic obsolescence. What is physical deterioration? Give me an example of physical deterioration. What is physical deterioration? A house falling apart would be an example of physical deterioration. Good. Talk about patio falling apart, a hole in the roof or something. And the last one is what? What's the last one? So is it economic obsolescence, physical deterioration? What's the last form of depreciation? What's the last form of depreciation? Nice job, Nelly G. The last one would be functional obsolescence. And functional obsolescence would be what? Poor design. Poor design. Great job, everybody. So that comes from poor design. When you study this stuff, you guys got to start with the basic stuff and work more complicated. I promise you to do that. Don't just try memorizing everything randomly. You should be sectoring off stuff that's easy for you and then gradually going easier to harder, hardest. If you don't have time for the hardest stuff, well, fine. You probably weren't going to know it anyway. So the easy stuff for this section is stuff like the essential elements of value, what are the forms of depreciation, and the types of appraisal. Okay, I will not be doing math today. Stu would be doing math, and we do webinars on contracts. Okay, let's do the question on the board. The best way to ensure there are no encroachments to a property and to properly verify the boundaries of a parcel of land is to A, verify the benchmarks, B, get a survey, C, write a legal description, or D, find the monument. The answer is get a survey. I do not do tutoring, but Stu and Cynthia do, and they're amazing. They're excellent. Okay, encroachment. That is when your property is on somebody else's. If you have a tree that leans over onto somebody else's property, but is not touching the property, but it's leaning over it, is that encroachment? Is that encroachment? Is that encroachment? Yes, and that would be considered an encumbrance. Great job, everybody. Good. If you guys are enjoying the webinar, I hope you're learning something from it. If you wouldn't mind giving me a thumbs up below, click that little button. There's a little button. Right now it says 51 next to it. If you guys wouldn't mind clicking that, I appreciate the positivity and the support and the positive feedback. That would be great. With that being said, let's move on to the next bit in the webinar. We talked about this before, so we're going to do this question. Of the following, which would most likely nearly refer to loss in value due to economic obsolescence? We discussed this concept before, so hopefully we all get it right. A, poor management of the property. B, increased demand of larger units. C, an architectural design which is declining in popularity. Or D, changing in nearby zoning. And the answer is D, change in nearby zoning. A little piece of advice for you guys as you guys are studying for the exam that worked for me is take on everything bit by bit. Do not try and study everything. You guys should not be doing the general practice exams or master exams, whatever you want to call it, until you've learned everything. And what I mean by that is break everything off in small pieces. So for example, if you're doing valuation and market analysis or appraisal, do not touch any other section until you've mastered it completely. A jack of all is an expert of none. For this exam, you don't want to kind of know everything. You want to really know, let's call it half of it, and then if you guess on the other half, you'll be fine. Okay, so promise me you'll do that. You don't want to just kind of know a lot of things, okay? So what I do is study this section. If this section's easy for you, start with the one that's easiest and make sure you nail it 100%. And within it, do 10 questions at a time. 10 becomes 20, 20 becomes 30, and so on until you can do the whole section. When that section is completely mastered, and guys, I can't say this enough, I mean completely mastered, then you move on to another section. All right? It's really important that you just don't skim through a lot of questions and kind of like sort of recognize all of it. That's a formula to failure. I prefer you really know half of it, like really know half of it. Then if the other half you're just guessing, that's passing if you do the numbers. All right, so whatever section's easiest for you, whatever that may be, start with that, nail it down, and when it's completely nailed down, then do something else. And if you don't have time to get to that section that was really hard for you, well, it was probably going to be a guess anyway. So for me, when I studied valuation and market analysis, the easiest for me, and then contracts, property ownership, and finance was the most difficult, so I left that towards the end. Okay, moving right along. There's a reason when we built this program, we built it up by sections, and that's why. We didn't just throw a big master exam there. We tried to separate it into learnable categories. Okay, which best describes the capitalization rate under the income approach to estimating the value of real estate? A, maximum rate of return allowed by law on investment. B, rate of which a property increased in value. C, rate of capital required to keep a property operating most efficiently. Or D, rate of return property earns as an investment. Heather, yes, what you're doing on Aceable Agent, that's exactly what I'm talking about. Aceable follows the same methodology that we do. The answer is D, rate of return of property earns as an investment. All right, moving right along. Capitalization rate on a property reflects which of these factors? A, real estate taxes, B, cost of improvements, C, debt service, or D, risk? What do you guys think? And the answer is D, risk. The cap rate looks at risk. When I said it's trying to predict the money based on how money's been made, this is all a prediction. Whereas the other approach is you're more looking at what is. You're not really trying to look at a prediction of the future. Like when we do the market data approach, you're looking at the two properties next to each other. They're right in front of you. With the capitalization approach, you're kind of trying to find how much money you think it will make for you in the future. You're basing the value upon something that has not really even happened yet. You're basing the value upon the income you think you'll make in the future. Okay? And obviously there's an inherent risk with that. The purpose of an appraisal is to A, set amount of earnest money the seller should accept from a purchaser. B, set the market price of a property. D, determine the project income of a property. Or D, estimate the market value of a property. And the answer is D, it's an estimate. Who sets the value of the property? What's the value of the property? What do you guys think? What's the true value of a property? The true value is whatever a ready, willing, and able buyer is willing to pay for it. Nice job, Stevie Nelson. Great job. Ooh, Heather wrote out the word ad valorem. Ad valorem. What does that mean? That's a tax reference. Just so you know, ad valorem is a tax reference. Who knows what that is? Ad valorem. So ad valorem is according to value and it's to find tax value. Who could write any other Latin that they've learned in studying for the exam? So ad valorem is according to value. What other Latin have you guys come across? Lease pendant, good. Lawsuit pending. Codicil, which is an amendment. Novas, Latin for new. Caveat emptor, buyer beware. Good. So you got pure autre vi for the life of another. Great. It's amazing how much Latin comes up in our everyday life. People are always like, why would you learn Latin? You kind of do use Latin. For example, anybody ever heard the term vice versa? If you guys ever use the word vice versa, that actually is Latin. That's a direct Latin. That's not English. That's Latin. So Latin comes up a lot. If you guys ever studied Latin, you know a lot more words than you think. You know the roots of words, and you know different languages. And it also helps a lot if you're studying legalese, which is what this is. Latin comes up a lot with legal language. Just a little tidbit for you guys. Emily's like, what? Yep, Emily, the word vice versa is actually Latin. Okay, which method would an appraiser be most likely to use when appraising a newly built one-year-old apartment building with no rental history? And the answer is C, cost approach. How much it cost to replace it brand new? All right, guys, that's it for today. But I want to just review some studying tactics. One, I said, go through stuff that's easiest for you. Bit by bit, like I said earlier. Don't move on to one subject till you mastered another. The other, make sure you memorize your 5 vocabulary words a day. Okay, 5 words a day. All right. It'll add up. Just wake up 5 vocabulary words and you'll be fine. You don't need to memorize 30. Problems people try to cram it in, but really it's not about cramming stuff in. It's about consistency. Consistency is what's going to get you guys past the exam. And also, it's going to be habit forming, which is going to help you in your career. You can't cram things in, your marketing or whatnot, when you start selling real estate. You've got to build a consistent plan. So setting that time aside every morning for your 5 words every morning is a plan and a structure, which could really help when you guys start selling real estate. When you wake up every morning, I got to learn these 5 things. You're always going to be learning something new. So if you set aside that time in the morning to learn 5 words every day, it'll help you pass your exam and help you through your career. When you do the questions, like I said, take on the stuff that's easy first, and then go to the more harder. The webinars are great to give a great overview. I love that you guys attend these webinars because sometimes it's just nice to hear myself, Cynthia, or Stu just explain something and put it into context. I would not rely on any singular one of those things. Everybody got that? You want to have a nice study plan that blends all of these elements, okay? So when you do your vocabulary, use flashcards and whatnot, attend these webinars to kind of put it into context. Am I right? I hope I'm right that when you listen to Cynthia, Stu, or myself, it helps put things in a little more context than just what you read in a book. And lastly, like I said before, study the stuff that's a little easier, master it, and then move on to the harder stuff. Bit by bit, piece by piece. All right, guys, that's all. I hope you have a great day. And I will talk to everybody soon. Thanks, everybody. Oh, sing the song. Adios, adios, clase terminó. Adios, adios, clase terminó. Adios, adios, clase terminó. Adios, adios, clase terminó. All right. Ciao.